Hello, my friends. I hope you're ready to dive in another video about the hot mess that the Project Bluebeam is. If you're not, sorry, because we're still gonna do it. If you're new here, then I'm just gonna tell you that I have started series of videos dedicated to the Project Bluebeam, and I have part 1, part 2, so make sure you watch those first before you dive into this one, because this will make more sense. If you haven't seen them, I will link both of those videos in the description box. That being said, I think we're starting, and in the previous video, which was part 2, we stopped at the Project Bluebeam implementation stage number 3, which was called Artificial Thought and Communication. When we stopped, we already understood that this third stage of implementation will involve mind control. As crazy as it sounds, we should not discard it as something that comes from the movies and cannot be implemented in real life. Because some of the stuff proves that people are already into these kind of researches and experiments, and this can actually, at one point, if it's not already done, be implemented in real life. Monast alleged that he looked into different reports and papers in relation to mind control, and from these papers he concluded that different mind control operations and technology involves some kind of like a transmitter that broadcasts at the same frequency as human nervous system. In regards to making those transmitters, Monast mentions a specific company that is located in California, and he's saying that this company has been creating those transmitters for a while now. So again, that's just what he is saying. I'm not claiming that it's true, but I guess he has some kind of background information to say that. And I quote, "This company has previously conducted research on directed energy weapons for Lieutenant General Leonard Perez of the US Air Force, who was searching for a weapon that could implant messages into the minds of the enemy while urging his own troops onto superhuman deeds of valor. The device employs electromagnetic radiation of gigahertz frequencies, microwaves, pulsed at extremely low frequencies, ELF. It is used to torture people both physically and mentally from distance." And so the process of ELF, or extremely low frequencies technology, has been described in many US Defense Department publications, and these papers that Monast is referring to were published at around 1980s. And I actually found a couple of them on the internet, so if you're interested into looking into those, they truly exist. I'm gonna put the link also at the description box. If you're curious, you might want to read those. So in general, it's a device that can modulate at audio frequencies and can broadcast messages directly to the brain of the human. So if we think about this as a tool that can be applied to like a larger extent, let's say move to a satellite, then here we go. We have a weapon that can control the population. Monast further claims and also refers to different sources that experiments with these waves have been conducted since 1960s. And for example, the book The Body Electric, where the Nobel Prize nominee Dr. Robert Becker, who is not part of these experiments, but he was simply kind of reviewing or writing about those, he said, I quote, "Such a device has obvious application for covert operation designed to drive a target crazy with unknown voices or deliver undetectable instructions to a programmed assassin." Furthermore, and this is mind-blowing, it will make sense, just listen to it. So in those experiments, allegedly, they also managed to speed up or slow down the hearts of the frogs by synchronizing the pulse rate of a microwave beam with the heart itself. Maybe this is a tool that can cause heart attacks. Not saying anything, but again, just referring to the fact that so many people are actually dying with heart diseases, like unexpectedly. And also, what is more important, a little bit after these publications, as we remember, Monast himself died of a heart disease, heart attack, and he was completely healthy. And if that other co-worker of his that I mentioned in the first video really existed, allegedly, he also died from heart disease. So maybe this is the tool that was literally used on Monast himself. Another interesting thing, Monast referred to a US Army journal called Military Review from 1980, and there is a column written by Lieutenant Col John B. Alexander entitled "The New Mental Battlefield Beam Up Spock." So I can just quote some of the excerpts so you get the idea. Several examples will demonstrate areas in which progress have been made. The transference of energy from one organism to another, the ability to heal or cause disease to be transmitted over a distance, thus inducing illness or death from no apparent cause. Telepathic behavior modification, which includes the ability to induce hypnotic states up to a distance of 1,000 kilometers, have been reported. So if you read this particular column, you can see that a lot of interesting things are mentioned there. For example, the parapsychological phenomena called out-of-body experience, remote viewing, also extrasensory perception or bioinformation. And also in this column, it's mentioned that Soviets, in their researches in regards to all of this stuff that I mentioned, they're far more further and more advanced in their results. So this means that in the countries of Soviet Union, ex-Soviet Union, they might have already developed these kind of tools and technologies a long time ago, and who knows when they're going to be used. Anyways, again, so that you understand that I'm not grabbing words from the air, I actually found a source where you can read this column. So I'm going to put also the link down below in the description box, and you can read it by yourself and just make your own conclusions, of course. And before we finish about this column, I just wanted to mention that they also mentioned something like psychotronics. I guess that's the correct way how to define it. Or in simple words, it's mind over the matter, or even more simplified, like example. So you understand, it's like, for example, when you see in the movies, then somebody is bending a fork with the power of its mind. It's very simplified, but you understand the idea. And this brings me to one side note that I wanted to mention. And so this side note again is going to bring us to the entertainment business or Hollywood. I bet when I was mentioning folding forks with power of mind or moving objects with the power of mind, you might have remembered some kind of movies or TV shows, especially, I guess, lately. One of the most popular ones was Stranger Things, and later it appeared that this might be based on a real project that was conducted on the soil of the US called Montauk Project. And if you didn't know about that project, wow, that's a topic, first of all. And secondly, it was basically about creating a psychological warfare with experimenting with abducted children. Let's not forget that one of the most powerful tools with mind control at this moment, in my opinion, is media, whatever, social media, TV, radio, wherever you are collecting your information about what's happening in the world, like advertisements that you are hearing or seeing on your phones or your tablets or on television. That's the mildest form of influencing your mind and choices. So, and this brings me to the idea, and I think I'm not the only one who believes in that, that the most visible form of manipulation that's happening with us each and every day is by means of the news broadcasting. So they convincingly tell us that things in the world are happening a certain way, and we just watch it. We kind of perceive it as being a truth, and we don't even question it. So here's the thing. If you're watching the news and you are accepting that without questioning, then, well, I guess you have already started to become a zombie. Ask questions, because media, in most cases, are not as independent and objective as we believe it to be. Many of them are owned by some rich, influential people who are directing the news broadcasters to tell stories the way it's beneficial for them. And I'm also encouraging you not to be afraid to refer and dive into some alternative sources. Yes, they might be contradictory. Sometimes they will sound quite crazy, but in most cases, it will just help you to go outside the box and start to think critically. And I guess this is the case why podcasts like Joe Rogan's Experience is very, very famous. That's because he's contradicting. He's inviting people who are talking different truth than the one that's every day given us via broadcasting media as the correct news. So again, I'm just repeating, Always ask questions, always do your research, and always think outside the box, because things that are given to us in most cases are not the way that they are. Anyways, back to Project Bluebeam and Serge Monast. The reports that he is referring to, and also the information that's circulating around, if you really look into that, clearly shows that people of influence and from the governments are very, and I'll repeat, very much interested into making this technology or tools that will provide them with mind control. This brings us to the fourth implementation stage of Project Bluebeam, and it's called Universal Supernatural Manifestations via Electronics. And according to Monast, there are 3 orientations for this implementation stage. The first orientation is referring to alien invasion. So they're gonna make people believe that an alien invasion is about to occur, and they're certainly aggressive and most probably gonna try to kill us. And this will provoke the major cities, the major countries to start to use their nuclear weapons to protect themselves from the alien invasion. And then the most interesting thing will happen. The United Nations Court is going to require for all of these countries and cities who used nuclear weapons to disarm, because it will be proven that this alien invasion was false. And how did the United Nations knew that this alien invasion was false? Clearly, because they created it. They staged it. And we already talked about how they did it. The second orientation is targeted towards Christians, so that they believe that these aliens or off-world beings will in fact save their world from the demons that are trying to take over the world. In other words, they want to get rid of the opposition, which is basically the part of population that are religious. And as I said, religious people are the toughest audience to convince to just forget their religion and join the New World religion. And the third orientation is a mixture of electronic and supernatural forces. I quote, "The waves used at the time will allow supernatural forces to travel through optical fibers, electrical and phone lines in order to penetrate to everyone at once through major appliances. Embedded chips will already be in the place. The goal of this deals with global satanic ghosts projected all around the world in order to push all populations to the edge of hysteria and madness, to drown them into a wave of suicide, murder, and permanent psychological disorders." And did you notice the part saying the chips will already be in place? Yeah, you can guess 3 times how this will be done. Or should I say, it has already been partially done and will be done to completion in the following years? I don't know. Should I even tell this? If you're not very bright and you didn't understand what I was talking about, then I'm just gonna ask you a question. Do you remember if lately there has been some kind of mass vaccination that was forced upon people? Okay, I'm gonna shut up. And also, I just got the idea, from the top of my head, lately the zombie movies have become very popular. So maybe that's the way how the entertainment business is telling us that this is how the future population is gonna look. The chipped population, brainless, I must add. I don't know, I'm scared. I truly don't want to become a zombie, but I really like Pedro in Last of Us. Anyways, at the end, as I have been mentioning in all of these 3 videos that I have dedicated to Project Bluebeam, Messiah or Antichrist, call it whatever, will come, save the world. There's gonna be New World Order, New World Government, New World Religion, everything new, everything's fine. That's what expecting us in the future, according to Serge Monast. And this, in short, my friends, in a very simplified way, is Project Bluebeam and how it will allegedly influence all of us. To summarize all of the 3 videos I dedicated to the topic of Project Bluebeam, I can conclude several things. Firstly, let's be honest, all of this sounds too crazy to be true and even possible. Just imagine how much planning is necessary to make this work. If I look at separate parts of the project, I can see how it can be done, but how to plan all of it to run smoothly all together sounds impossible, Well, but is it so impossible? Remember the sources that so-called New World Order people have. And here's a stupid example to illustrate that absurdity not always means bullshit. For example, if you tried explaining people from the past something that is so essential in nowadays, like for example internet, they would say your place is in a psychiatric ward. This is a simplified example to demonstrate that even the craziest things now can be turned into reality in future. Secondly, the signs you start to see when you really start to understand that the ones in power never do anything for simple and honest people like us. All they're worried about is power and money. Thirdly, at least for me, this is a huge eye-opener. It's when you start to listen to people around you and you understand how brainwashed they have become in the last 2 or so years, to an extent that they are believing anything they are told, even if it's an absolute bullshit, even if it concerns their health and life. And I, at the end, just want to conclude and say that during the research that I was doing in regards to this Project Blue Beam, I came across this feeling that each of the things that I'm mentioning can still be researched separately. Like I could do a deep dive on so many things related to Project Blue Beam. And because, I'm a geek. I ask questions. Even if I get an answer, I ask additional question, and this is like never ending. Like, for example, I think it would be interesting to talk about Montauk project. It would be also interesting to dive a little deeper into that population control topic. Let me know in the comments. From your feedback, I will understand whether there should be part 4 or 5 or anything else related to Project Blue Beam. And also, speaking about UFOs, you like UFOs. I've noticed you like my UFO videos. I mean, where in this picture with Project Blue Beam and hologram is the story of real aliens? Because I do believe that they exist. I mean, I do believe Bob Lazar and his story. I believe that there is a reverse engineering happening. And also, let's not forget George Knapp, who has now this amazing podcast with Jeremy Corbell, and they are opening eyes to so many things. And George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, they're reliable sources in my opinion. And they're in those podcasts, they're even mentioning that the US Army even once had a real alive alien that they were doing experiments with. Like, where does this all takes place in the picture of the New World Order, if it's really true? And if the aliens exist, will they just leave us destroying ourselves, or will they invade and save us? Or maybe they really are the bad ones who are trying to destroy us? So many questions, My head sometimes is just so busy that I feel like maybe I should pour a glass of whiskey to just calm down, because literally I've been thinking about these topics even before I go to bed. So at the end, I guess I'm not putting a full stop at all. After all of this rambling I did a couple of seconds ago, I'm putting a comma. And what happens next also depends from you, from the topics that you would like me to cover. By the way, for more broader understanding of what is happening in the world, including religion, Hollywood, I would like to suggest checking out the channel of Jay Dyer on his YouTube channel, Jay's Analysis. Believe me, you want to see that. Hope you have a peaceful, nice and calm day, and see you next time.